Great. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the channel of the High Priestess of Hedonism. Today's pursuit of happiness and pursuit of pleasure is from delighting our hearts and delighting our minds through delicious conversation and through learning tips on how to get closer to our dreams. My guest today is a very special person, riveting in so many ways. When I talk about her, I can only do so in alliterations and superlatives. She's fun, she's feisty, she is fearless, and she is a fantastic raconteur. She is also spunky, she is spirited, and she is stunning. Many times she stuns too, with her candidness and her straight talk. Well, meet the very affable, very amazing Anuja Chauhan.
Oh, wow. I am stunned and stumped. What an introduction. Thank you so much.
That's really one of the best known authors in India today. Welcome to the show, Anuja. I'm so happy to have you here with us.
I'm very happy to be here. The pursuit of happiness sounds really noble, and I'd love to talk about it.
Thank you. It's going to be interesting to see how one Virgo chats with another. You know? Yeah. Do you also have high levels of OCD and crankiness? You know, a Virgo
Yes,
hallmark?
yes.
In
And they're
ankle
getting
bracelets.
worse in the lockdown.
And are you also
It's getting worse in the lockdown.
Sorry, come again. Your voice is cracking. What did you say?
I said it's getting worse in the lockdown.
Yeah. And with the age advancing on all of us, right? I know how nutty we're going to get, in the long run. We shall see. Or others shall see.
Others shall.
Yeah, others shall see. And are you successfully making other people's lives miserable, especially of those at home?
Yes. I'm making everyone quite miserable, I think, because I've become obsessive. I will walk across 3 rooms to straighten one cushion cover.
That's
and like breadcrumbs are driving me crazy.
Yeah.
And like one sweatshirt left on the ground floor. The piano lid is not shut. People play and they leave it open. So I've got lots of pet peeves and I have become extremely insufferable. So now my children have started staying awake all night and sleeping all day so they can avoid me.
Wonderful. That's a good respite for them. I can't I can't stand tilted things, crooked things. I cannot. They have to be in straight lines, isn't it? And a speck of dust. Dust and I have a continuous battle every single day. Not even a speck of dust is something that I can tolerate. That's so horrible, no, for a nerves. It makes me jittery, really. Did you know that your lovely husband, Niraj Alba, and I have worked together? Did you know that?
No. Where? When? No.
I used to be in my earlier avatar. I was, many years back, I was the media relations officer for Australian High Commission. And then I got onto the 5-star bandwagon and I was heading the marketing communications for Hyatt. And we worked a lot with Miditech with their excellent programming, some wonderful programs together. So yeah, I'm very fond of him. Very, very nice person. Please give him my regards.
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Well, ye dil mange more, nothing official about it. Oi bubbly, tera hai par mera hai, and the best, dar ke aage jeet hai. So many, riveting, iconic lines which have had a lasting impression. They've remembered to date, from a successful advertising person to a very successful author. Just how do you do it? What is the secret of your success, Anuja?
It's all teamwork, honestly. I mean, I know that sounds really lame and like I'm being very humble and all that. And my husband always says, you're not so great that you have to be humble now. You might as well be modest. That's all like true greatness.
Right.
But honestly, it is a lot of teamwork and a lot of good timing and having good people in the room and good clients to work with. And I need to set the record straight, which I keep trying to do, that Tera Hai Par Mera Hai is not a line I have written. It is a campaign I have headed and I've done a lot of the work on it, but the credit for that line is not mine. It belongs to 2 other people. And people keep saying that and I keep wanting how to correct it. But I'm mentioning that just now also to say that actually everything happens because there is a muse in the room for whatever reason, that comes in. So I think it's much more, as I get older, I realize this, that it's about creating like an atmosphere where creativity flourishes, and you have no idea, like, you know, you're sitting there, 5 people with fancy designations, and the guy who brings in the rajma chawal for lunch may crack the line for you, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But it's not just his line, it's still our line, because we're all there and we said something to him and he said something back, and so it's collective. So, you know, you hear all these stories always about like these direct, like someone made Sholay, you know, and then they could not make Sholay again, even though it's the same bunch of people, the same magic. But Chan is not a Sholay. There was something in the room then. It was magical. It was blessed, you know.
Absolutely.
So I think that happens, whether it's a band that makes amazing music together and then breaks up, which happens all the time. And they have great solo careers and all, but it's not, you know, it's not that. Like, no matter what solo careers, for example, like Harry Styles may have today, but everyone will say, "Yaar, wo one day mein kitna acha tha." So it's that, you know. So it's I'm so happy that even though now I do not work in advertising, that all my connections are still live and all my friends are still my friends, and I've got that to take away. So not only is it that, look, she wrote Ye Dil Mange Mo and she wrote Dar Ke Aage Jeet Hai, it's also, look, these are her besties, these are her friends, and this is her life. So, I mean, if you're talking about happiness, I think that's where it really comes from.
Absolutely, and pleasure. The pursuit of pleasure too, right? Hedonism. We are being hedonistic in the new definition, Anuja. You know, if we don't redefine hedonism now and sort of see it in values and principles and achieving dreams and creating knowledge and enhancing a skill base and most of all giving back to the society, I think, you know, what pleasure used to be earlier does not hold good anymore. We have to redefine it. We have to relook at things. But you know, I don't agree with Niret here when he says that, you know, you can't be too modest right now. You are being modest, because what I see, no, seriously, and I mean that, you have been pursuing excellence, Anuja, whether it was in your advertising profession or in your writing. I think that drives you. Am I right when I say that?
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, yeah, the pursuit, for me, it is the pursuit of happiness is not something I actually do. My pursuit is the pursuit of excellence, actually. And I think the byproduct somehow seems to be happiness, because I'm also trying to pursue the excellence of happiness.
That's
so,
right.
you know, that, yeah, like you set a high standard and you go for it. You know, I always try to do that. And so you'll fall flat on your face, but like your intention was noble, the motive was pure, whatever it is, you know, whether it is a Zumba class or planning a birthday party or some massive campaign which, you know, costs a lot of money and there's a lot riding on it. I think like you should go full on everything. And that is my tendency. Like I always go full on, and I'm not ashamed of coming across as enthusiastic or coming across as trying too hard and don't you have a life, why are you so obsessed with it? I'm like, yeah, but this is my life. Like currently this Christmas celebration for this colony party in this RWA is my life, you know, and I'm going for it. I don't feel embarrassed about that. I don't feel like I have to say, you know, I've got other shit going on and this is not my main thing. Everything's my main thing. If it's not my main thing, I won't do it.
Absolutely.
I won't do it. Yeah. Absolutely. So that's my.
And we are going to come down to a lot of your main things. There's several of your main things that I'm aware of. So we're going to talk about each one of them. But you know, Oi Bubbly, was it coined for you? Did you coin it for yourself, or did people, you know, start calling you Oi Bubbly?
No, actually, that was a brilliant brief. Like for Oi Bubbly, we had a great brief, because so up till then, a lot of the Pepsi ads we've been doing had been about. The chase for a Pepsi, you know, you'd have like Shah Rukh and you'd have Sachin, and they're both fighting over some Pepsi bottle, and someone gets the Pepsi and somebody drinks it. So it became more and more like we weren't talking about the product. We weren't talking about the taste of Pepsi and so on. So the brief that came to us was an excellent brief. It was called The Joy of Cola, you know, like let's talk about the joy of cola. And when you talk about the joy of cola, then you think, Acha, what can I do? And then you think about bubbles, right? Because like bubbles is the joy of cola. And then of course it's you know, there was, then you think about it, and then, you know, you make these little connections between bubbles and bubbly and Oi Bubbly and like a hot chick and so on. So, and the other thing I wanted to say was that the taste of the Pepsi is so good that even if you don't have a mouth, you will grow a mouth to drink it. You know, which is really the brief. So like you have in that first film, you're Shah Rukh walking along and he's got a Pepsi bottle in his hand and he passes these 3 girls and the neighbors of the three girls turn into mouths and they say, "Oh, I love you, bubbly," or something. That's how that ad started. So
Yeah,
it was a joy of cola. It was a great brief, and
yes.
that's how it happened.
And this iconic line, it really sort of, rings very closely to me. Dar ke aage jeet hai. It's such an anthemic line, Anuja. No? How did that
I
come
know.
about? Yeah,
It's a very
very,
solemn line. I mean, I meet so many people who tell me we love Dar Ke Aage Jeet and we said it to ourselves. And recently I had such a somber conversation with, somebody who'd had cancer and who apparently was saying Dar Ke Aage Jeet. And I felt so stupid, honestly. I'm saying
oh,
like,
it's
what? Like,
fantastic.
but
No, it's
it's
very
amazing.
motivational. It is.
But yeah, it's a great line. And honestly, again, with Dar Ke Aage Jeet Hai, it wasn't my favorite line. I mean, there were other lines that I liked better. So I guess, again, I may have written it and taken it to the client, but the client puts his finger on it and says, "This one," because I'm showing you four, you know,
You're
and
right.
this is the one. So there's that as well. But it's true now. It is so true. Dar Ke Aage Jeet Hai.
बिल्कुल है, बिल्कुल है. If you have that grit, if you have that gumption, that's when scale your Mount Everest, isn't it? I think your
True.
autobiography, we'll call it Dar ke aage jeet hai, and in sort of subtext we'll say, "Oye bubbly." Is that all right?
No, I think my autobiography will be called Mera Number Kab Aayega.
Is that your line too?
Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. Anuja, tell me what takeaways can the aspiring authors, pick up to emulate your example, yet write their own life story from your journey? What can they pick up?
I think again, like just go full on. Like I meet a lot of writers who now say things like, "Oh, I've written 3 chapters and an outline, and I'm trying to get a deal and stuff like that." And Chodo, don't do all the deal outline. You write your whole book. I mean, like if you love it enough and you have enthusiasm enough, just find time for it. And I would tell them to just write a whole book before they go hunting stuff. And when they're writing their book, I think they should not write it with a sense of audience, because if you're trying to catch in on a trend, or try to be like very clever and very marketing savvy about it, then your intention is not pure. So you should write it with a pure intention, and you shouldn't write it with a sense of audience, because then you're going to come up with something little secondhand and little done before and little formulaic. But if you go and again tap into your own experiences, think about what like in my first book, what did I know? I knew advertising, I knew cola advertising, I knew a little bit about cricket because I've seen so much behind the scenes cricket action, I knew Karol Bagh, I knew army background. So I mixed all that and I wrote. So again, like it'll come out of your experiences. What do you know? What is your life? What makes your experiences unique? And use that, whatever it is, because that's your voice.
That's true. That's true. So fabulous. And I think you've said it, and I've heard from some very established authors as well who've said the same thing, that you cannot write for the audience. You can't say that, okay, I'm going to write with the premise that my book is going to be successful. You can't do that. You have to write what sort of relates to you, what sings to you, and then put your heart out, and that's when it'll be, you'll have the chance that people will like it too, isn't it? You said it also, in the past.
It's true. It's the universal is intensely personal. That is it. It is a very personal story which becomes a universal story.
Yes, yes.
So it has to be your personal thing, and chances are that you will find echoes everywhere. And so you should just do what is intensely personal.
Absolutely, absolutely. Fantastic. And you were into advertising for 17 years, am I right?
Yeah.
17 long years. What led you to becoming a writer, Anuja? Why did you pick up the vocation of writing?
No, I joined advertising because I wanted to write. And I left advertising because I wanted to write. Because initially, like right out of college, I did economics from Miranda House. And then I didn't know what to do. And then Niret, who was my boyfriend those days and 5 years older than me, and I thought everything he said was like gospel truth. And he said, you should join advertising because, you've done eco and you're creative minded and you like to write. So it might be a good intersection, And so those days in ad agencies, they are desperate to hire anybody. It's very easy to get a job. It's hard to keep it. Like in ad agencies, they have signs which say trespassers will be briefed. Like, that's how desperate they are. So I got the job and then I really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed it for a very long time till I started realizing, one, that advertising is an applied art. It's not pure art. So there's always a product to be sold, there's a story to be told. There are 7 grams of rajma in every kurkure rajma. So all that you have to say. So it became a little frustrating, just that the fact that like the brands I worked on tended to be very star-studded. So every script had to be vetted by whichever celebrity I was working with, or it had to be vetted by the fact that the cricketers I was working with couldn't act for toffee, and so half my scripts would fall apart because they said, "Ye Sachin se nahi hoga." So there were all those kind of constraints, budget constraints, everything. Also, the fact that as you get more and more senior in advertising, they kick you upstairs and you do less and less writing, and more you become like the office ki mummy. And people come to you and say, "Meri promotion nahi hui," and all that kind of thing, which is not writing, for heaven's sake, right?
True.
So finally, all that kind of added up and got to me.
Yes,
and there was this one particularly very high profile shoot with 4 movie stars, 2 from the north, 2 from the south, some crazy budgets, and I was so out of control. I said, this is not about me. I wrote the script and nobody cares about me today. So it was trying to get that creative control.
Yes.
So that night I went back to the hotel and I started writing a book, because I said, if I write a book, I have creative control. It's just me. I can do whatever I like.
That's right. And that's how the Zoya factor came along. Did you expect it to become a runaway success?
No. For me, Zoya was, it was about me. It was all about me. People in office were telling me, Anuja, you're having an affair, your face is glowing, you're so happy, what are you doing? Kya ho raha hai? And I said, kuch nahi. I'm writing without time constraint, because every script I wrote for Pepsi couldn't be longer than 1 minute, so it was like pretty hard. And here I was writing, and nobody says it was amazing. It was such a thrill to write that first book. So for me, it was the joy of the writing. Again, pursuit of happiness. That's what I was doing.
Absolutely.
And the success just happened along the way. And then the book did well. Again, I think because it was written with a pure intention.
That's true. Quite right. And how do you, all your books are so successful. They're so sort of, happy books and, with interesting themes. How do you choose the underlying themes for your books? How do you go about doing that?
I think I sort of go for things that really piss me off, So if there are themes and there are things about society that irritate me, or there are conflicts that I want to explore. Like for Bars, for example, the whole thing of, muscular nationalism versus somebody who's calling for peace and saying, do we really need to get into war? A theme like that. In Pricey Thakur Girls, it's about the anti-Sikh riots and the fact that people didn't get justice. So that was a theme there. So every book, it's about that. Battle for Pitora was such an unfashionable book to write, because after I wrote the Zoya Factor, everybody was like, the next book you write should be about reality television, because those days Niret was doing like Indian Idol and all these shows, and they said that'd be a great setting, you have access to it. But I was like, no, I have access to politics as well. Why don't I write about that? Because I'd gone campaigning with my mother-in-law up in Uttar Kannada, and I was like, oh God, I'm pronouncing it wrong. But to her constituency, no. In North Canada, in Karnataka.
Oh, okay. Right.
I'd gone campaigning with her, and I thought it was, besides everything else, I just thought that there was huge scope for humor. And this is before Arvind Kejriwal and Anna Hazare, and before people were interested in politics. So, and I thought, no, I'll write a political novel because I think this needs to be written. And I enjoy this theme and I think it's interesting. So I tend to go for conflicts and themes that interest me and that irritate me and that make me want to say something. Like, Zoya Factor came out of the fact that I couldn't believe everybody was so bloody obsessed with cricket, and they had absolutely no chill about it and no perspective, and they were going half mad over it. It's just cricket, for crying out loud, So that came out of that. So it usually comes out of a huge sense of like khundak and irritation and like wanting to do your little bit to, to help people think about stuff.
But that's fantastic. Something that needles you, something that sort of, jolts you from within, something that angers you is what, brings out the good product as well. I say the same thing about pain, isn't it?
Something you're passionate about. Yeah, absolutely. Because, I take 1 year to write a book. And so, I mean, you read my book in one night, maybe 2 nights, 3 nights if you're a slow reader, it's a bad book. But I will write it for 1 year. So it needs to keep me motivated for a year. I have to get out of bed every day and work on that. So it better be something I'm passionate about.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And also, do you follow a writer's routine? I just read somewhere Haruki Murakami, he gets up at a god earthly hour of 4 o'clock in the morning, and then he writes for 4 5 hours. Then he goes for a 10-kilometer run. Then he comes back, has a little siesta. In the evening, he has a glass of wine, tunes into his favorite music, does his reading, and then winds up, to sort of call it a night to have the routine back again. What is your writer's routine like?
Well, now my children are grown up, so my routines had to change. Usually it
Yes.
used to be start writing after the kids go to school and stop writing when the kids come home. I mean, it was that. So, but I tend to write, like when I'm writing at fever heat and the book is really like, flowing. Like my newest book, I wrote it in the lockdown in 4 months. That's the fastest I've ever written a book. But when I'm writing at fever heat, I will write all day pretty much for breaks, for chats with people or with exercise, Zumba, walking the dogs. And what I do, like my dirty secret is that after everyone goes back to sleep, I pull it out again and I reread everything I wrote that day.
Wow.
And I either make it better or I delete it. So, I either make it better or I delete it. And there's nothing more painful than deleting something you spent
Oh,
the
it
whole day.
is. It is. I'm going to tell you my secret. I don't delete even a single word. I'm very, very sort of greedy and stingy that way.
Yeah.
Even one word I may have written, say about 10 years back, it's stashed away somewhere in the folder, which I hope to revive, my half-baked
Yeah, that,
post. Do you do that? I mean, don't delete it for
no,
heaven's
I tell a lie.
sake.
No, I tell a lie. I don't delete, I cut and I move to my other
Yeah,
folder.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
sometimes, very often, I come back in some other book or in some other screenplay or some
Correct,
column or some
correct,
ad or something. I'll put that
correct.
back and I might reuse it.
That's
Yeah.
right. And when even if you go back to it after say 5 years, you've matured, up mentally also that much. So even relook at that, idea in a
Yeah.
new way and do maybe better
Yeah.
justice to it. So no deleting.
Yeah.
And especially somebody
Absolutely.
who's so sort of talented like you, not even deleting a single word, Anuja, isn't it? And are you a morning person? Are you an owl or a lark?
I'm not a lark by any stretch. I'm not a lark. I'm an owl for sure. I like the night times. Also, you see, my house is very noisy, and in the lockdown, it's really noisy. And my housekeeper is amazing, and she's lived with me for 25 years, and I love
Wow.
her. Like,
Yes.
but she's really loud. Okay, so by 10 o'clock, she cleans the kitchen, she wipes it down, and she goes away. And after that, I get into the kitchen and I open my laptop and I make coffee and I write there. And my kids come down and we have hot chocolate and we bake carrot cakes and momos and like whatever we're in the mood for. And and then we'll chat and we'll have chai and everything. So
Lovely.
I'm definitely
Lovely.
allowed. Yeah, but I'm living with a lark. Like, so my husband wakes up really early and
Oh,
10 o'clock he's out,
oh
so then.
God.
And
You
I
know,
think most working
uh,
mothers have this, you
that's
tend to
right.
like, you hang with your children, they sleep late because the
Yes.
only way you can hang with your kids is if you stay awake late at night.
That's correct. That's correct. And what is a day? What does a typical day look like in the life of Anuja Chauhan? How does it roll for
Okay.
you?
So sweet. No, I wake up around 8:30. Then my Mali comes and I hang with my Mali for 2 hours and I follow him around. And yeah, so the mornings are with Rajanna, who's my Mali.
Yeah.
And then I write. And then around nowadays, lockdown has made life so different. So
Yes.
you write till about 2 o'clock, the kids come down, around 2 o'clock, people wake up, they're having classes, everyone's on their own trip. So the morning is very much anchored in my time with the Mali. The evenings are all about Zumba, so it's like, oh, my Zumba class, my Zumba besties. I cycle to the class and I come back.
Fantastic.
Those are the two bookends of my day, really. And yeah, and that's it. Nowadays, anyway, life is very different and amazing. It's nice also, and it's crowded also.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
very much, my life is very much about my garden and the plants and the animals and the children and exercise. And baking and cooking. There's a lot of that going on nowadays, I think, in everyone's house,
That's true.
Yeah.
And you joke about it, and again you become very humble about it. But you have these fantastic set of 10 green fingers. Whatever you touch turns to green gold, isn't it so? I keep
No, no,
admiring your garden, Anuja. What you've done to your house, what how you developed your garden, new plants, plants going to creepers very fast, the trees shooting up like nobody's business. How do you do that? It's beautiful. It's really a
no,
piece
no.
of heaven you created.
It's Bangalore. It's the red earth of Bangalore. Like my mother used to say, "See, Bangalore में तो ऐसे सीट फेंको और पेड़ उगाते हैं." It's true. It's got. In fact, we moved to Bangalore. I mean, like, we are Delhi people. Nirata and I, we lived in Delhi our whole lives. Our kids have grown up in Gurgaon. But like when it was like, okay, now we're going to make a house, and we're going to make a house with a garden like your grandmother had and my grandmother had, and we'll be grandparents one day. And we should have a grandparents' house, and where should that be? So once we got into that conversation, and if you wanted an airport and you wanted a city and you wanted amazing weather and you wanted not very expensive prices, it was Bangalore. Like, it ticked everything. So it's that. I mean, I think it's that. And also I'm learning a lot from my neighbors, because my neighbors are really smart. And out here in Swiss Town, everybody's gardens are amazing. Like this morning, my friend who lives next door, she has sent me a Loki, like such a big Loki. You will not believe the size
Wow.
of the Loki.
My
And she just said,
God.
it's not a bumper crop. Here's a Loki for you. Then somebody sends me, like, 6 papitas. Then somebody just has so many passion fruit that they put it outside their gate near their post box.
Oh,
And जिसको जितना चाहिए काट कर ले जाओ types.
fantastic.
The
Fantastic.
mango, guava, so it is that kind of township. So,
Wow.
I'm nothing. Like, people here, their gardens and their levels. So I go humbly and I say, thoda sikha do, what should I
So
do,
sweet.
what should I
Yes,
plant, all that, because
absolutely.
they're at another level, yeah.
And you
But
talk
I love
about
it. I love outdoorsy
no,
people.
that's right. That's right. You talk about the weather being absolutely fantastic there, but you've been a Delhi person also. Though writing is a very internal thing, you can be anywhere and you can be inside your head and work. How has writing been affected from being in Gurgaon to being in Bangalore? Has there been a difference, a
No,
susceptible
so
difference?
my so I can okay, so like little like author plug of new book coming up here. So my new book is called Club You to Death,
Oh,
and it is
that's
set very
pretty
much in the
good, is it?
Lutyens' zone in Club You to Death.
Oh, okay, all right, right. Oh,
It's a murder mystery set in a club, not based on any particular club, but
right.
it's on Aurangzeb Road in New Delhi, and it's called the Delhi Turf Club, and it's about an election at the club and a murder that takes place there. So it's a very, very Delhi novel. But like I feel like my Delhi connection is like a soul connection, and that's not going anywhere. And thanks to new technology and all, I've managed to retain my friends and so on, and I
That's right.
do go, and like then I sometimes will go to Delhi and we'll stay at the Delhi Gymkhana and we'll sort of do all the Lutyens things and all that. So I've very much kept that connection alive. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so the newest book is a Delhi book, but I don't know. I mean, I'm see, I'm from Delhi. Like, no matter, people will ask you and you'll say, oh, my dad's from Rajasthan, but he has lands in Haryana, and my mother's from UP. And who's interested in the long story? You just say, I'm from Delhi. And leave it at that.
Question to you also was, uh, does the climate, the environment, the kind of people around, the peace and quiet of the environment versus the hustle bustle of Delhi, does that affect you as a writer in terms of your efficiency and your output? Does that have a telling
Okay,
on?
it does. Well, it does. See, in the sense that I love Swiss Town and I love the slow pace of my life here. But I would love it less if I didn't have other places to go to.
Correct.
You
Correct.
know,
Correct.
it's that, like, right? So because that life can get really hectic, you might, because I still work in advertising, people brief me, I go to Bombay, I meet movie stars and I do ads, and so sometimes life like heats up, or there's a movie, or there's a TV show, or, people want me in other cities. So you go there and you do that town mouse kind of thing, then you come back and do your country mouse thing for a bit.
Oh, yes.
But if you were a country mouse all the time, you would start feeling a little sad for yourself. But I
Absolutely.
like town mouse, country mouse. It
Correct.
works.
Correct. Correct. There was a joke that I read online. It's a silly joke. Let's get past that. Tell me, besides writing, what else are you engaged with? I hear that you're a very established screenwriter also now, Anuja.
I don't know if I'm established anything. I mean, I like writing books well. A lot of people have acquired the rights to my various books, and I mean, I've written a screenplay which is currently being shot, which is a cross-border romance set in Lahore and Amritsar and LA. So that's being shot as we speak. I think they've got very little more of the movie to be shot with Neena Gupta and Arjun Kapoor, and that's like a really fun movie. So I do write screenplays and stuff, and I of course write my column regularly for the Week magazine, which I've been writing for more than 10 years now. And I love everybody at the Week magazine. It's amazing, so I do that, and that keeps my sort of deadline muscle toned because that goes out. Absolutely. But and I do ad campaigns, like I did the ill-fated Congress party campaign last year. For the election, Abhoga Nyay. So I do that stuff as well, but writing books is my main love. And again, it's because I'm a freaking control freak, Virgo, every little dot and every little dash I have to approve. So that serves my control freakiness best, is writing the novels.
Right. Okay, that's great. And tell me, talking back about author's life, how important are literary agents in a writer's scheme of things?
Oh. I am not a fan of the middleman. I am not a fan of the middleman. And not just, I don't want to just like pick on agents. For example, there is God and there is you. That's it. There shouldn't be one church, one temple, one Maulvi, one random person coming. Those kind of people I don't like. You know what I'm saying? Between me and my God, yeah, why you're coming in the middle and saying all these things? Exactly like that are Bollywood agents. These people are like literary agents. They're in there for their freaking commission. They don't give a damn about you. Now suddenly Kwan is in the news. It's, it's terrible what's happening there. But I'm just saying, like, typically, I mistrust middle people. I'd rather go to Dastakar and shop and know that my money is going to the craftsman and I can meet the craftsman. It's always best that way, right? So similarly, I think that publishing houses would be much better advised to just meet writers and read their stuff instead of going through some literary agent and being lazy. Come on, yeah. You're a publisher, meet some writers. Why are you meeting agent in the middle? So, and I think that they just go out there and even today I had a conversation with some young boys written an amazing book, and there are some agents who are sidling up to him and they think, you'll have to pay for your own marketing and you'll have to pay for your own promotions and so on, and that's expected, and they're just, sucking these poor kids dry. It's not right. So I'm not a fan of the literary agent. I really don't understand how that works. I think it would be much better if publishing houses just met with writers directly. And no, that may not be possible, but I think they should try.
But that publishers don't speak to authors directly anymore.
Very bad. So lazy. Why are they being like this? It's wrong.
It's wrong. Also, I feel agents, filter and sift through a lot of stuff that would go into the slush pile, right? They would choose.
No, and these agent types, they are these people who put labels on you, and the agents are the kind of people who tell you, why don't you write about reality TV because you have access to reality TV and Indian Idol is such a hit. They like jhado this half-baked marketing gyan. I'm sorry, I'm really like going for it here, but honestly, and it's not just I'm telling you, it's about everything. It's a middleman in any kind of like handicraft industry or creative field. I really don't see the point of them. No. I've never met and I'm talking more about when you go to Bombay and you shoot with like sweet young cricketers who just made it, and there's so nice. For example, Shah Rukh Khan, okay, does not believe in middlemen. He will give you his phone number. He will message you directly. Wow. He will set up his meetings directly. He's very no, yeah, you and me, you're trusting me with your brand, my Pepsi, based on Pepsi is like my family. He'll pick up your call, yeah. He does have this whole thing. And I think the first time it happened was with Sachin Tendulkar because he got this big deal and he's working with a company. And now, my God, you can't meet them. You can't talk to them. There are like 10 people around them telling them what to do, saying, ab tu bahut bada aadmi ho gaya, ab tu ye kar, ab tu wo kar, all that nonsense.
Yes.
So,
yes. True.
No.
True.
Yeah.
No, and that brings me, you just sort of, brought it up, and that brings me to two things which I really, really like about you, and I'm going to, put that on the table. You don't like labels. You ferociously you rejected them. I can't
Yeah.
put you in the chiclet slot. That's one thing I can't put you into that at all. But even, above and over that, you don't like any labels. Why is that so? Why is label such an anathema with you?
No, labels are reductionist, and they dumb you down and they put you in a box.
Yes.
And they say, "औकात में रहो, itna hi karo." That is my problem with labels. You can't just say that you are this, you're an actor, don't talk about politics, like that kind of thing. So it's just rubbish. So I mean, that is my problem with labels. And I think they get in the way of discovery. For example, like if people will say, oh, that it's a popular novel, so a lot of people may not read a book because they'll think that, "Arey, ye to badi popular type ki hai, bakwas hogi," or they'll say it's a literary novel. And if you're a person who only reads commercial fiction, you say, "Man, who's going to read this shit?" Versus you could just say it's a good book. Why? I mean, there are good books, there are not good books, there are unputdownable books, and there are putdownable books. These are enough labels. Why do I need to get into all this kind of stuff? And I think these middlemen kind of people are the people who come up with all these labels because they have to sort of justify their existence and show that, हमने बड़ा analyze किया और हमने, we have strategized and we have analyzed and we have done research and all that kind of crap, which just gets in the way of being intuitive and being pure and just, being in the pursuit of creative excellence.
Sure, sure. Also, with this channel, with the pursuit of pleasure, with the High Priestess of Hedonism channel, what I'm also trying to do is really bring some good old values back on the fore. The millennial has lost control of that, lost sight of that. The principles that we talked about that our parents instilled in us, the way they live their lives, the right kind of needs and desires and wishes and wants. The other movement is religion, and I've heard about you, I've read about you. You born into a Hindu family, married into a Catholic family. At one time, you had adopted Christianity as a religion, and then you said no. Now you're not an atheist really, but you're just a spiritual divine person, right? I mean, believing in divinity, not believing in religion. What has led you to become like that, Anuja? Why did you?
No, Aruna, again, it is about rejection of the middleman. I'm telling you, all the Kochi comes from this.
Correct,
It's like saying,
correct.
my connection with the divine. Who are you to tell me go in a church and pray? Unless you go in a church and pray and you get the Holy Communion, it's not technically prayer. How do you know? I sat under my Gulmohar tree and I looked at the flowers and one koyal sat and sang there and I had an entirely spiritual experience.
Correct.
Who are you to tell me that that is not prayer and that is not connection? Because it is.
Yes, that's
And
right.
why do I have to go and I have to donate into your little plate and say this is my tithing of my 10% of my earnings which will go only into the Roman Catholic Church? Ye kya hai? Who made this rule? Yeah, I mean, this organized religion, all this rubbish happening in our country is because of organized religion. And Hinduism was so great and vast and noble, and now they are dumbing themselves down to the level of these book faiths like Judaism and Christianity and Islam. It's terrible because this is not Hinduism. So it's just it's that, so I realized that this doesn't work for me, and so I'm not doing it anymore. So I'm just like saying prayer and religion anyway is a horrible word, but I'm saying prayer, belief, faith.
Yes.
These are all great things, and these are intensely personal things.
That's
For example, like you and I, we will not get into a fight saying my husband is better than your husband.
correct.
It's a stupid conversation.
Absolutely.
So why we get into a conversation about my God is better than your God? It's a stupid conversation. It's ridiculous. So
that's a very, very important takeaway, ladies and gentlemen. We can't stress it enough in terms of, really understanding the actual meaning of religion and spirituality and faith and making it personal between you and God. However, in whatever shape you see him to be, and not really going by what has been written, in a very archaic manner. Isn't that right, Anuja? That's so well said. Absolutely. Now, the next question is going to be completely, unrelated to you, but I'm going to ask it.
Okay, sorry, 1 second. I'm going to have to go away and bring my charger because I'm on
Yes,
3%.
do that. We'll wait for you.
Ah,
Absolutely.
sure.
So I hope you're liking the conversation, ladies and gentlemen. As I said, and it's very enlightening to talk to Anuja all the time. She's completely shorn of any affectation. She has no sham. She has no put on sort of, attitude about it. She's such a simple soul and very intelligent, very, very, and she knows what she wants. She's really strict about, things that she likes, she doesn't like. And she follows, she lives her life with a great set of principles. It's amazing to talk to a person like that who also, like I said, I said to her in the beginning, one of her driving forces has been excellence, how to excel in whatever she does. She was a fantastic, so successful advertising professional who gave out such iconic lines. And then that brings me to another point: credit. I've learned it from my some a set of my very good bosses as well in my corporate career. Only the people, set of people who are very secure, self-sure, confident, or what they have in terms of the skill base, the new and talent, can be so secure. And here we had Anuja saying the same thing. I've heard it from her in other interviews. She said it to us on our show that it's not just me. It could be 10 people in the room. It could be the tea boy who brings the music in, and who drives the music to the room. So giving credit. I was just saying that you've said some very important things about excellence, about being about knowing what you want and going after it, with all that you have, and defining your purpose, defining your passion, defining your dreams, and then not letting anything else come in between. And the other important thing that people should, really pick the threads of, and that's a very rare thing found in very few people, is giving credit to the other. People are in the business of stealing credit from everybody in any sphere of life, in any vocation, in any profession. They want to steal the credit. And here you were talking about a tea boy, giving you an idea, or 10 people, being working on the same line, not taking the credit for yourself, for something, for anything at all. And that's a very special quality. Most people get away from that, and that's not the right thing. If you really want to be hedonistic, get pleasure from giving out credit also. That's a
I think what it is that you have to figure out what your currency is. Like, I did this rather doomed ad for Nokia, which didn't really see the light of the day, but I was so happy with that line. It was saying, the lyrics were, if every song was a penny and every tune was something, how rich would you be? Like, how rich would you be if currency was songs? And it was about making a song list. But I think it's about, like, you have to decide, like, what your currency is, like, what are you trying to collect in life? So if you're, what is your tijori up, what is your booty? And for me, I've realized now that I used to think it was having like a great show reel, a great portfolio, and obviously those are good things. But I'm also intensely proud of my friend portfolio and my experiences portfolio. It's important for me that I have girlfriends and boyfriends who I've had now for decades, and I will do anything for them and they'll do anything for me. And that for me is currency. That is something I've earned. And I've earned that also by not being this kind of manic, like credit grabbing person. And in my 20s, I will admit, I was a credit grabbing person. I was a kind of horrible person who says, my line, my thing, I've done it. And I got one hard juta in my life for being that kind of person. I lost a whole select group of people who I thought were my friends. And I've sort of re-examined my motives subsequently and said, no, this is wrong. What are you trying to gather over here? I want to flex about friendships. I want to flex about experiences. And that is true currency. It's not the other stuff. It's really not the other stuff.
Absolutely. I've become such a Jackie Shroff chela over the years, and the things he says to me, the things we discuss, really. One thing he said in the interview also, Anuja, and that's a fabulous thing, reaffirming what you're saying. He says, there are two ways of looking at a person, or two ways of, reading what the person was all about. He says, some people say, Acha tha, what a good person, chala gaya. The other would say, Acha tha, chala gaya, good riddance. So, what bracket do you want to, Really, the intonation there and the, the feeling. So how would you want to be started? Acha tha chala gaya ya acha tha chala gaya, what
Yeah,
I say. So this,
yeah, very true.
So there, ladies and gentlemen, that was the first part of a chat, a delightful chat with the amazing Anuja. We had great fun talking about a whole lot of things, but there's still so much to talk about. I guess women, right? Two women and two Virgo women. But there is a whole lot of interesting things to ask Anuja about, so we can't let it go away so quickly. Wait for the second part when we come back to you with a whole lot of more questions, lovely answers, some huge laughs, and a lot of fun chatter and great atmosphere. Join me back for part 2. See you then.